Hey everyone, it's Kitty and Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hey everybody.
We just got out of Black Panther for the second time because last weekend we went to an event for the Chicago Nerd Social Club, which is something that we sometimes do, and we ended up winning tickets to the Tuesday advanced screening of Black Panther. And then we also had...
It also would have cost us like $60 to park downtown my car all throughout the workday, so we weren't going to drive home from the downtown screening.
Yeah, and we had already bought tickets for tonight, so we just decided, okay, we're going to watch it twice, which we were going to do, again, we were probably going to do anyway, and then just record for the second day. So we've actually had a couple times to kind of absorb this movie, and I gotta say, it's probably the best Marvel movie that they've done.
Hands down, pretty much the best villain.
Definitely best villain. Honestly, even the side villain is really entertaining. I think as a movie outside of the continuity of that they have going, it's a really solid film. Anybody who has never watched another Marvel movie could honestly jump into this movie and not really have... I think there's a couple of bits of exposition that they mentioned at the beginning, and that's about it. That's all you need, and it's explained fairly early. So you get a really good sense of the movie as its own thing, while actually making me very excited for Infinity War, which I wasn't really excited about. I mean, it was fine, but this movie made me really excited for it. So I will also say, because if you can't tell, Mike and I are both white people, and frankly, the opinions of this movie that are more relevant are from black people, and there are tons of black reviewers talking about this movie. I'm just saying right now, highly recommend going and checking out. I'm trying to think. My brain's really tired. I had a full day of work and then I came here.
I'll put links in the doobly-doo.
Yeah, we'll put links in for various from black reviewers. But so we're just going to talk about it, but don't consider us experts, and we're just seeing it as audience members. But yeah, everybody was really good.
I will say, the advanced screening had so much better energy than the screening tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. Tonight, well, here's the thing too. We were at the Atmos Theater, which has
less people because
there are the big seats, and I think that was honest. The big seats mixed with the big theater meant that it was a lot more space and a lot less people, whereas it was close to packed in the advanced screening we saw, and they had their energy up. Whereas this one, it was a lot quieter, and so it was a different energy. But the movie itself, regardless of that, is really good. The only couple characters, we met T'Challa, who's played by Chadwick Boseman, and we met his dad who died in Civil War, and that's about it for... Oh, and also one of the guards, Io, who is only really a secondary character in this movie, but she does show up. So if you're a fan of the woman who kind of stood up to Black Widow in Civil War, she is in this movie, Florence Kasumba. But really, when you get down to it, the main women in the cast are Lupita Nyong'o, who plays Nakia, who is Black Panther's ex, Danae Gurrier. I'm so sorry, Gurrier.
There's no name that you are ever good at pronouncing.
I'm terrible at all names, but Okoye is her character, and she's the general, and also basically T'Challa's bodyguard. And then Ramonda is Angelica Bassett, and then shoot, and now I'm trying to find the sister. But the sister was Shuri, who has basically stolen everyone's hearts. Everybody loves Shuri. She's such a fun character. It's Letitia Wright who plays Shuri, and Shuri is T'Challa's little sister. She's the best, but she is basically the Q to T'Challa's James Bond. She creates all the cool gear, and she gets a Q scene where she shows T'Challa all of her cool new gadgets that he's going to take on the mission, and she completely teases him about different things. They have a really good sibling relationship that I love. But all four of those women are really good in this movie. I was especially really excited to see Nakia get a lot because I knew that she was kind of being set up as the love interest. And I always worry with the love interest that they don't give them enough. And in this one, she has her own stuff going on. The beginning of the movie, she has a very specific, strong opinion about what their country should be doing for the rest of the world. She is very integral in the second and third act of the movie. Like, very much so. Without her, like, quick thinking, a lot of, like, they would not have had a happy ending to this film. She is a complete hero through and through, but also her, like, spirit and her drive. You totally get why T'Challa is drawn to her. So it makes their will they, won't they dynamic actually work really well, which is something that doesn't always happen in these kinds of movies, because usually the love story is kind of just thrown in there because they expect the hero to kiss a girl at the end. But yeah, so, like, all the women were great. T'Challa, I think, had, like, a really interesting performance. I liked him as a character, but I think it also helps that he was backed up by, like, really interesting characters. And as we kind of mentioned, I'll actually get to Killmonger in a second. I do want to give a shout out to Andy Serkis for playing another character another bad guy that I expected to be really, like, boring and ended up being really interesting. And by the way, we are going into full spoilers, so this is your last chance now to get out. Start bailing. All right.
See the movie.
It's really good. Start bailing right now if you haven't watched it. All right, ready? So this is the second villain that he's played in, like, 2 months that ends up being kind of, like, quirky and funny in a weird way, and then immediately dies way earlier than you expect.
Yeah, and it's brilliant.
It's pretty great, but apparently he has a niche now of, like, villains that you think are gonna be, like, one of the main bad guys, and then they just leave. Betrayed by an ally, actually. Also betrayed by an angsty ally who has like, family issues.
I don't think he made it through half of the movie.
Yeah, he was, like, in the early second act, I think.
Like 35% of the movie, and then bam, he's gone.
Yeah, but the real villain of the movie, and really I've seen other people not even want to call him a villain necessarily, but just an antagonist, is Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger, who we find out is actually the cousin to T'Challa. He is the American son of T'Challa's uncle, who was secretly killed by his father in the early 90s. And essentially, Eric was left. And there's this really interesting thing that the movie does, because not the problem with Wakanda as a concept, because it's amazing. It's this, like, secret country that where its people avoided slavery by basically hiding away, and they have this amazing technology. It's basically a utopia and this, like, bastion of freedom. But they did that by not interfering with other stuff throughout the world, including, stopping genocides, or aiding in World War II, or
stopping the transatlantic slave trade.
Yes, or like stopping slavery, and they do a really good job in this movie of explaining and having you understand why they did that, because like the world sucks and they didn't want what they had, which was so special, to be ruined by colonialists, like people that would come in and take over and then ruin them, because that's what they did to the rest of the world.
They were afraid of 1,000 Eric Killmongers. Or not Eric,
Claws. Yeah, Claws. But the movie makes a really good point that like those things still happen though, and you did nothing to stop it, so you are culpable for people that look exactly like you suffering throughout the world. And Killmonger's whole thing is that we're going to use all of this technology and all these weapons to take down all these horrible, like, governments. But the problem is that he as a person has spent his entire life training to be, like, and basically he's said, like, I learned from them. I learned how to take down weak governments and how to infiltrate and then slaughter people, and how to he worked for the CIA. And the interesting thing about his character is that, and the movie is really clear, like T'Challa flat out says this, but it's set up before that he thinks he is just using these tactics and like fighting fire with fire, but what he's really doing is setting up to perpetuate the exact white supremacist colonialism that he hates. And it's a really, I mean, he even says, the Wakandan Empire will never crumble, and because suddenly they're an empire, suddenly they're going to it's all imperialist all the way for him. And I like the fact that the movie does a very good job of being nuanced about how white supremacy infects everyone. Even the people that are oppressed by it also have that, there's part of that in there. I don't know. It was a really interesting and nuanced and complex movie for being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I know that there are people that are going to touch on these points way better than I am off the top of my head. I'm very much looking forward to these think pieces, because I think that there's a lot to say about this movie.
Like how T'Challa is all I think there's something to be said about all of T'Challa's actions from the point where he takes in who's the CIA agent's name?
Ross.
From the moment he takes in Ross and he has this little speech about I couldn't leave him, and that sort of, and when we could save him.
Yeah.
That line right there basically frames all of T'Challa's actions throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it comes from Nakia and her thoughts. There's also this really poignant part when they're pulling Nakia out of her mission. And she's, first of all, pretty pissed about that. But T'Challa's taking down all these guys with guns who have kidnapped all these women. Who, by the way, who are pretty clearly coded as Muslim, which I thought was actually a really nice move, because there are Muslim women in Africa. So that was cool. But what I liked about it was that T'Challa is about to take down the last guy with a gun, and Nakia gets in his way and says, "Stop. This kid was kidnapped too. He literally was just handed a gun. He's not one of the bad guys." And Nakia makes sure that the rescued women then take him back to his home too. And that sets up the whole thing with Killmonger. Like, here's this boy who was basically pulled into this violence, and without the empathy, but because they're his uncle, T'Challa's father, didn't show him kindness and empathy and left him, he became a monster, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the fact that this movie sets up so clearly that theme of like these like young men who are like, and it's also part of toxic masculinity too, you know, that they're pulled into this and they get hate and it swells in them, and that's like, they don't start off like that. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff. I will, getting back to Killmonger really quickly, I think the one thing that really solidifies how, even though he makes good points, our friend Bilal actually has on their Twitter handle right now, Killmonger had a lot of valid points, which he did. But after so there's a part where he bests T'Challa for the crown and for the title of Black Panther, and he's brought into the spiritual realm where he communes with his father, and it's very touching. And again, you see him being vulnerable, and you understand that everything he said about loving his father, about his father teaching him about Wakanda, all of that is true.
And also the opening narration of the film.
Yeah, the second time we watched this movie, I realized, because at first I thought it was supposed to be T'Challa talking to his father, asking like, tell me the story of home. And because you think like, oh yeah, T'Challa and his father. No, it's Eric and his father. And you realize that because the kid asking his father has an American accent, not a Wakandan one. But anyway, so he gets pulled out after he communes with his father from the spirit world. He gets pulled out, and he's shown around this garden that has these flowers that give the Black Panther and the king, you know, because they're the same person, their super strength. And the person that's tending the flowers says, you know, we tend them so that they'll be ready for the next king. And he picks her up by the neck, like he starts choking her, and he goes, next king, and then he demands that they burn everything. And that's where the movie goes, yeah, this guy is like, no matter how many valid points he has, this is where he falls. Like, this was his, I mean, he was probably going to fall anyway, but this was the part where he went too far, because
it's a demonstration of how he goes too far.
Yeah, it's a very clear line and framing of like, no matter how much you empathize with him and pity him and totally see how he feels he is justified, him saying there will be no more kings, I'm the only king, this power only belongs to me, is the point where you go, oh yeah, he wants to be a tyrant. He wants to take over everything, not to liberate them, but to conquer. He wants to be a conqueror, flat out. So, you know, I like the fact that the movie is very good about showing the nuance between the old Wakandan kings were wrong to hide away like they did, but Killmonger is also not completely right either, because he is bred in this like toxic masculinity and white supremacists, and no matter how much he says that his tactics are using it against the people he hates, he's just becoming one of the things he hates. And I thought that was done really, really well. And like I said, lots of women in this movie. I think it's one of my favorite chase scenes I've seen in a long time, and I love the fact that Shuri got to be a part of it. That was such a cool scene, because one of Shuri's weapons or tools is that she can throw a little device onto a car and immediately take over the car, and she can actually control it from remote pilot from her lab. So she gets to have this big chase scene, but because she's supposed to be 16 years old, she's not actually driving the car in the chase scene, with potentially getting killed. She's completely safe, but she gets to be in this cool chase scene all the same, which I thought was fun. Sorry, Mike, what else? Do you have anything to say?
I had a point earlier, but
you better think about it soon, because I'm getting pretty sleepy.
I know. Keep going. I'll come back to it. I'm sure if you could talk more, I will come up with points.
I will say, one of the other things I noticed on the second time around is that there's a point where the queen... So they do get one last of the flowers, and Nakia gets it, and she's going to give it to this tribe that's up in the mountains in the snow, because they are the only ones who have not kind of bowed down to Killmonger as the new king. And the queen is like, I am not okay with this. I don't really trust them. I don't trust their leader. I just worry that we're creating a bigger monster by giving them this. And she says to Nakia, you should take it. You're she is of noble birth. She's one of the daughter of one of the leaders of one of the other tribes. But she's also I trust. It's such a cool moment of the queen showing that she respects Nakia, that Nakia has proven herself to be a noble person. And I like the fact that this was offered to the character. And then she's wise enough to go, no, because
X, Y, and Z, all these things.
Yeah, it's it's not a good idea for me. It's not a good idea. I'm not the right person to do this. I'm definitely not the right person to do this now, where no one, where I don't have an army behind me. What would I do? Just walk up in there? It's not, but it's really cool that, that she's offered all this great power, and she wisely chooses not to take it. And that ends up saving T'Challa's life, because it turns out that the tribe had found T'Challa.
Well, not just that, but they offer it to the mountain leader.
They do, and he turns it down, because he's actually a fairly decent dude, even if he's kind of a jerk sometimes. He ends up being really funny. There's some really funny moments in this movie that just come from character stuff, not even jokey jokes, just characters being generally, and actors really being really charming and having a lot of charisma. So yeah, it's a pretty good movie. Do you have anything to say?
Okay, so this is another movie like The Last Jedi that also had moments that really surprised me, and that is something that I think is really good in movies, because I love it when a movie surprises me. And I think it would have been really easy to make a movie where it was, let's forget this movie for a second, but if you had a Black Panther movie where it was, Bucky, and everyone's upset that T'Challa brings in this Bucky and this outsider, and
and then having Bucky
having Bucky be the key to this internal conflict, but they made it entirely not about Bucky at all, and hands down, it's a better movie for it.
Yeah, someone else mentioned though that they could have had Ross come in at the very beginning and be the point of view character, and instead he kind of just shows up in the middle, and he's more, we're already in the loop with all the characters, so him being surprised by everything is us laughing with Shuri, not like us being bewildered with him, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to do this movie. I am, like, one of the bigger surprises to me was actually when T'Challa lost to Killmonger.
Really?
Lost.
I saw it coming.
I didn't see that coming. I actually kind of thought that they were going to have Killmonger actually, like, sort of, like, I don't know, like, sort of have some kind of underhanded way of defeating T'Challa.
Yeah.
And maybe that was how he won, if he was going to win.
No,
but they
he
didn't.
was just...
They bested him straight up in a fair fight. And I love that because it makes Eric's
like,
less villainous. It's not Scar throwing Mufasa off the cliff. It's just Eric straight up besting him in that moment.
Also, Okoye's, like, loyalty to the crown makes a lot more sense if she's like, yeah, I hate this too, but also this is how this works, and I have
to be this.
I have to do this. And then immediately after she sees that T'Challa is still there, then she's like, oh, well, he's still the king.
My duty's to the king, and you're not the king right now.
You're not the king right now. So...
I mean, yeah, like, her whole thing is the duty of the crown in the last act there.
Yeah. I'll also just say, like, we talked about the tech a little bit. There's so many, like, really interesting ways that they use the tech in this movie, and they make it, like, make total sense.
There's so much good, like, great, like, tech design, too, in this movie. Much more so than, like, even Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's, like, entirely space tech.
Yeah. I also really like that, like, they'll introduce a tech piece, and it's clear that T'Challa's going to use it on, like, in his mission. But then they use the same tech pieces for other things later in the movie. And it feels like a more integrated world because they don't just use something once to be, like, cool. They also use it multiple times.
That's a running thing throughout the movie, too. Like the whole challenge thing. You know, there's 2 challenges, and they keep building and setting up on what they've previously told you and shown you to do new things with it.
See, I will say, I wasn't as surprised about this movie as you were. There were definitely points where I saw what they were setting up. But I also, some of the things, it took me into the middle of the movie for me to realize. And I also think, to its credit, it is also very well paced. So some of the structural stuff in that pacing is the setting up payoff stuff that I could kind of see coming. Whereas with Last Jedi, while I still really like it, and I think that the surprises are one of its strengths, it also doesn't have as much of the structure that Black Panther has. I think we talked about this a few days ago too, but yeah.
Since we have seen it in both versions, IMAX 3D and Dolby Atmos, I will say Dolby Atmos is far superior.
I will say that if you do end up going to see it in 3D, the one thing I will say is that Wakanda is beautiful in it. You get to, like, they have a lot of shots of flying around, and you definitely feel really good seeing that city. It's a very cool city.
Here's one thing I will say. So right after Eric Killmonger gets the throne, the first scene with him in the throne room where the camera's upside down and it slowly turns back up, that I had to close my eyes a little bit for in 3D.
Yeah,
or at least go to one eye.
Even at the other one, it was pretty, at tonight's, it was pretty
But
rough.
I mean, like, it's fine in 2D to me. In 3D, that shot sort of...
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah, it's too much for me. I went to one eye on that one. But still, like, I think there's a lot of... I think the Dolby Atmos is a better camera, projector, and experience than IMAX 3D now.
Yeah. So...
Go see it in Atmos Theater. It's such a good projector.
So, is there anything else you got? Or anything else? I feel like I'm pretty solid. Like I said, I
think I made the points that I've thought of a lot of.
Yeah, it was... is really strong. Looking really forward to other people writing about this movie and about the themes. I think I'm very excited to see how other people take it. I know that a lot of people were waiting till Saturday to see it, so I'm still waiting for a few people to get their points of view.
There were also a lot of things you were talking about on Twitter on how you want to see someone make a comparison for colonialism between this movie and Thor.
Yeah, I mean, considering that they were both directed by people of color, and there was a major focus on colonialism in both. One being very centered on what happened in world history, this one, and the other one being like metaphor in space. But there's some really interesting stuff going on with both, and also like the sins of the father, that sort of thing. So I would love for someone to do a piece on that. It was a great movie. You should go see it. Hopefully you've already seen it, and because we kind of spoiled a lot of it. So hopefully you went to go see it already.
Yeah, right? Yeah. You've made a terrible, terrible mistake if you've listened this far.
Yeah.
And have not seen the movie yet.
Yeah, definitely. So are we good?
I think we're good.
All right. Katie, Mike, justplainsomething.com, and we'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.